we're officially live in like 10 minutes, but I figure this way if anybody tunes in and there's problems with the audio like last time, they can let us know.
Yeah. My notebook's out there. Wait, no, it's not. It's right there.
Oh, thank God you have yours. I couldn't do this completely from memory if I had to. I did not sleep anywhere near enough to do this from memory.
I just don't feel good.
You did drink a little much last night.
A little bit, yeah. But, I remember also the bullshit map I drew in here.
the squiggle. Because like,
I was like, if this is where it's supposed to be, it should be like right here.
Supposedly. Also, I was looking at it, and apparently there's a debate. People are currently debating whether Raccoon City is actually in Minnesota or if it's Springfield, Illinois.
I have not slept enough for this.
I haven't either, but I fell down that rabbit hole. Hello, we'll be getting started here in a few minutes. We're just making sure the audio levels and everything are all right. Thank you for joining us again. Excuse me, I'm still waking up. I got 2.5 hours of sleep.
I actually got decent amount of sleep, but the quality was kind of bad. But no, I don't really have that many notes.
No, but it's enough for us to go on, and you and I both know Resident Evil like the back of our hands.
You right.
What color are Wesker's glasses?
Which one? Which game?
Dang it, I thought I could stump you.
Which game?
Because he has red and black.
Yep.
Although, honestly, the red is sexier. Let's be honest.
It depends on the game that we're talking about. And or movie.
You mean how, like, the ending of 5 didn't happen?
What do you mean? He's not stuck in a fucking volcano.
We love you, DC Douglas. If you ever watch this, we love you very, very much.
We quote you on a daily basis.
It breaks my wife. It's wonderful. But yeah, so quick rundown for those of you already here. The way we're going to do this, we're doing it a little different from last week. We're going
we gave ourselves more time,
We're going to be doing this for about 2.5 hours, leaving the last half hour for, like, viewer comments and such. We're also not going to be answering the chat. We'll be reading the chat as we go. But because we have
if we see something, we'll mention it.
If I could finish real quick.
Sorry.
No worries. We're both still waking up, so that's the thing. Anyway, we'll be reading the chat, but we won't be mentioning it until that last half hour because we have so much to go over with this episode. And the last half hour will be, reading your comments, answering questions, stuff like that.
Yeah. To be fair, we have over 8 games to cover.
We do have over 8 games, plus technically the movies.
I think we should just briefly mention the movies.
I'm just going to touch base on those. Mostly because I actually have not seen the animated movies yet.
Neither have I.
But I have seen the live action, and I can quote them like the back of my hand. Hey, that's new. Sorry, if you guys get that reference, I love you. But yeah, we'll be starting in about 5 minutes. We're just giving everybody time to get here.
Get here,
Sit down with your cups of coffee. Get your little nerd caps on. And get ready to buckle in for another episode of Fandoms and Coffee. God, it honestly sounds kind of sinister.
A little bit.
Either that or I'm just extremely sleep deprived.
The answer is yes. As I draw little umbrella symbols all over my...
Are you drawing umbrella symbols? Are you seriously drawing umbrella symbols all over your journal?
Yeah.
Not sponsored by Umbrella Corps.
Don't blow my cover.
Wait, what? No, seriously, what? What are you not telling me, my dear wifey? Wifey, I love you, don't kill me.
Yet.
It has to be at least a year for the life insurance.
Yeah, exactly. I swear I love my husband. Also, umbrella core symbols are actually really fun to doodle.
Mm-hmm.
When you actually get it correct.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so tired.
Babe.
What?
They have an LP vinyl for My Hero, Heroes Rising. I might need to get it at some point. That's a talk for another episode, though.
That really is.
Mostly because the My Hero episode is going to be a lot of, no, your best boy can't be my best boy. My best boy is the best boy. Hashtag Minetta's best boy. So yeah, we're legit just killing a little bit of time real quick. We still have a few minutes.
Sorry if it's boring.
Voice chat after this podcast episode. VC chat after the... Yeah. We do have some errands to run today, but we can do a short chat afterwards.
Today is payday, so therefore it is...
Run around, do errands,
day.
pay bills, all that fun stuff. But we can do a short chat after the episode for sure. Seven minutes. 7 minutes is all we have for a chat before we have to inject Ouroboros into the atmosphere.
To be fair, it'll probably be about that.
Yeah. Also, I apologize ahead of time.
Today.
I apologize ahead of time because I can promise you I will be making very, very, very bad Wesker impersonations all throughout this episode. I apologize ahead of time. It's for you, honey.
Hmm? Oh, okay. Hi.
From one of your friend's servers. I'm guessing Mo's.
Aaron.
Oh. I was close. It was one or the other.
Yeah, they're in our server as well. To be fair, I'm not usually awake at this time.
No, but...
And I've been awake for a lot longer than I usually am.
We did decide to start doing this as a morning podcast, though, so we can get some form of normalcy back in our lives. I said some form.
Hello. We'll be starting
Hello.
in just about a minute.
1 more minute and we shall be starting. We're trying to start this as on time as possible to give people a chance to get in, click on the links, etc.
Alright. Should I turn the fan off or...
It's barely picking it up, plus if we do, it's gonna get hot as hell in here. Like, unbearably so.
Mm.
Oh, hey, Matt! Yeah, it was awesome seeing you, by the way. Oh, your buddy's hosting us. I didn't recognize... I didn't think to ask your username yesterday at work, I'm sorry. And it is 10 a.m., so... Welcome, everybody, to the second episode of Fandoms and Coffee.
We're keeping with it. Holy shit.
Yeah, no, like, last week we weren't sure if we were going to get a positive enough review to go on with the second episode, and we had a lot of people actually ask us, when's the next episode? When, you know, where are you going to be putting it? What's it going to be about? We had a bunch of people asking us about, you know, the second episode, and then we also had a bunch of people asking, you know, via friends who tuned in last week, like, okay, so what's the podcast like? Where can I watch it? And it's like, okay, well, I guess we have to stick with it now. And I'm actually really happy about that because
it gives me something to really reach toward.
Not only that, but it's also something that we look forward to every week. Now, like, we were a little iffy about doing a morning podcast because neither of us are morning people, but, like, surprisingly, we have been, compiling notes. We have been doing research. You should have seen the red string I had taped all over the place trying to find connections everywhere. That was fun. My wife almost killed me.
To be fair, I was jumping in like, no, this is wrong.
You messed with my strings. You messed with my strings. You do not touch my string board. I will get you your own string board, but don't fuck with mine. Anyway, so today's episode, we are delving into a fandom that my wife and I actually bonded over when we first met. We are going to be going into one of my favorite series. I've been playing it since, let's see, I'm 28, going on 29, I'm going to do the math. Since I was a little tiny brat running around, playing games that I probably wasn't old enough to play.
Probably.
Don't call me out like this. Anyway, we're going into Resident Evil today, which, as many gamers know, is one of the... Honestly, I think it's one of the OG horror games.
It really is. It's a staple for sure.
It is. So, to start off, I'm trying to think, like, how am I going to phrase this best? Resident Evil definitely changed the horror genre.
Mm-hmm.
Because before that, there was a lot of, I'm trying to think of ways to phrase this.
It was like,
There was, like, really corny horror games.
It was.
Like, Resident Evil was... It was not... For its time, it was beautifully done. It was done amazingly, considering it came out in, like, 96, 97. But by today's standards, is not the greatest as far as graphics and gameplay go.
But at the time,
it was right up there with the peak. It was up there with, like, Tomb Raider with the horrible triangle cleavage that haunts me in my sleep.
Resident Evil actually looked so much better, like...
It did, but it was up there with the rest of these adventure horror action games that weren't 8 or 16-bit. And it also came out, like, the storyline itself was this really interesting concept, because we'd had zombie movies before. We've had Evil Dead, Army of Darkness, Night of the Living Dead. I'm sure there's some others that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, but we've had the zombie genre before.
I need to look something up real fast.
Alright, I'll just keep talking then.
Go ahead.
Because apparently that's what I'm good at. But we've had zombie genres in the past, and Resident Evil, at least I feel, completely turned the zombie gaming genre on its head. Like, it brought in all these new concepts as far as different types of zombie viruses, and just the way they wrote the story itself made it seem like it was initially maybe going to be a one-off. Like, the first Resident Evil, they weren't sure if they were going to get a sequel after that. Like, when the first one came out, it was a little off the wall, not super off the wall, but definitely not the norm for gaming at the time. And they were honestly, like, I looked into this. I found interviews where the creator actually said, I didn't think we would ever get more than one game. And even then, I didn't think they'd let us release the first one.
And, Resident Evil also opened so many doors for other horror genres. I actually just looked it up. Silent Hill came a few years after the original Resident Evil came out.
It did, and it had very similar mechanics. The fixed camera, the puzzle solving, while still throwing in the horror survival.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really big deal for the gaming community.
Yep. It was ambitious, and
it was also, in my personal opinion, one of the first horror games to release in the 90s at least, because there's been charismatic villains all throughout history as far as movies, video games, books, you name it. But to me, it's what opened the doorway, for me at least, for the charismatic villain archetype that I have a really bad habit of falling for.
Honestly, me too.
So, starting with the first Resident Evil, with its blocky graphics, with its wonderful voice acting. I
You know what? Okay. First of all, there was, even though a lot of the voice acting was bad, but especially by today's standards of voice acting, for example, like Jill and that was really good.
It was to a point.
To a point.
During the regular scenes where there wasn't any action, it sounded like a conversation you'd see on like a 90s procedural show.
Mm-hmm.
The action is where it killed me, though, because even as a kid, like, the screams did not sound at all realistic or anything like that. And then there was Barry. So, going to Resident Evil 1, everybody knows that Resident Evil, the T-Virus, all of this started with what is known as the Mansion Incident. Or, in some cases, the Mansion Mission. It just depends on who you're talking to. And the Mansion Incident started with reports of terrorist attacks and possible bioweapons, one of their teams going missing and everything, and this elite team of STARS agents consisting of Jill Valentine, Chris Redfield, Albert Wesker, Barry, I cannot remember his last name.
There were a bunch of people. They were actually the second team.
They were the second team. They were going in to find the first team, because the first team was like, help, we're being eaten alive. And from what I understand, because I went back and rewatched the cutscenes recently, because unfortunately I don't have the ability to play the OG Resident Evil anymore, and I'm very sad about that. But from what I understand, it was a case of Alpha Team's gone missing. We got some crazy reports, but there's no way that's right. They assumed it was like a hallucinogen or something, like it was some form of like what's the word? A neuron gas or something like that.
Yeah, which, I mean, it could happen, and either way, you gotta get your people out.
And the original team, Barry, Wesker, Jill, Chris, and there was 3 others. There was, I think his name was Rico or something like that, or...
I don't remember.
There was a couple of other smaller characters who were part of Alpha Team who, as most small characters go, ended up being the quote-unquote red shirts of the first game. And if you don't get that reference, you need to watch more Star Trek. But it was interesting, because STARS started out as an anti-terrorist group that specialized in hunting down malicious terrorist cells, bioweapons, everything that went against the Geneva Convention, which is basically every terrorist organization out there. Excuse me.
I mean, STARS itself stood for Special Tactic and Rescue Services.
So their whole deal was go in, stop the terrorists, save the people, save the day, go home. And Wesker was actually a STARS captain.
He was, and a lot of people, I don't understand how a lot of people keep forgetting that.
A lot of people do tend to forget that Wesker was, like, the OG STARS captain. Chris and Jill are awesome heroes, don't get me wrong. But Wesker originally started the whole nightmare because they get to the mansion, and as usual in every horror game, you split the party. You first rule of any adventure, horror, first rule of anything, you never split the party. It's just common sense.
Anyone who suggests to split the party
is evil.
Get suspicious of them right away.
Because Wesker was the one who actually said, Chris is missing. You guys check the bottom floor. I'll check the top floor. Mm-hmm. He was the only one to suggest he went alone. And surprise, surprise, he unleashed a tyrant. He did not die when he got shot in the chest repeatedly. He escaped on a helicopter and went, fuck you, STARS, I'm evil. Ha 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 ha. I've been working for Umbrella Corps this entire time. My evil scheme has come to fruition. Wah ha ha ha.
That's basically the whole game.
And that's basically the entirety of the first game. You find out about the T-Virus, which we'll go into the detail about the T-Virus later, because there's a whole section on that that's going to be fun to go into.
Yep.
because we're going over...
There's different variations of it.
The variations, and then there's all the viruses that came after the T-virus. But the first Resident Evil opened the doors to Umbrella Corps, STARS, just Raccoon City in general. And it introduced us to two of my favorite protagonists, as much as I hate him in 5, Jill Valentine, a.k.a. the Jill Sandwich.
The Jill Sandwich.
And Chris, I Punched a Boulder Redfield. Still mad about 5, but we'll get to that.
Just because we don't necessarily like them in that doesn't mean they're not good characters.
No, Chris Redfield is an amazing character. He's got some awesome character depth. He's got some great story growth.
He does, especially from the first game on.
But come 5, we'll get to that.
We'll
I have some issues with 5. We'll get around to that. But it was interesting because you could switch between Jill and Chris's perspectives with 1. You played through as Jill, you played through as Chris. You got to see both sides of the spectrum there. And then 2 happened. 2 was interesting.
I don't remember 2 as much.
I remember bits and pieces. Like, it was interesting having a horror game with a female protagonist. So, like, having Jill as a playable character in the first and second was definitely one of those things that most gamers were like, really? Because, yeah, we have Tomb Raider and all those, but those are adventure, and those triangle boobs still haunt me to this day. But it comes down to, Jill Valentine was one of, not the, but one of the original female horror protagonists that really started helping to change the genre. And
you mentioned Jill Valentine, and most people know who that is.
Yeah, like, if they don't know the games themselves, they at least know Jill from the internet references, or maybe they saw the movies, which they were bad, but they were still entertaining. And it was 2 was interesting because 2 you actually got to explore Raccoon City, if I remember right.
I am not 100% sure. I know you did in 3.
No, you're right. It is 3 I'm thinking of. To be fair, 2, as interesting as the story was, it wasn't interesting enough for me to remember it in detail.
It basically was just going back over what happened in 1.
And then showing a couple of different perspectives in it from what I remember.
Yeah.
3 is where I really got excited, though. Like, 3 really took off. And we actually got to see a lot of Raccoon City and the inner workings.
Mm-hmm. What was happening right there in their hometown.
Not to mention there was, the RCPD and all that other fun stuff, and poor Jill. She didn't ask for any of this, you assholes.
She really didn't.
But no, Resident Evil 3 was originally called Resident Evil 3 Nemesis before they did the remake. And that was because that was when they introduced the quote-unquote perfected Nemesis project, which I know is one of your favorites.
It really is. No, Nemesis and Tyrant for me. But going on Nemesis for a second, just because we were on that. It was so interesting and they actually did this in the remake too. They actually did it, in my opinion, better in the remake with Nemesis.
Mm-hmm.
Because holy shit, safe rooms aren't safe anymore.
Yeah.
I still need to go back and finish playing it. For myself, but...
Well, and then there's Claire Redfield, who's in the whole mess as well.
She's in 4. No, she's not 4. She's in... No, you're right, 2.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, 2 was Raccoon City. You're right.
Okay, yeah, no, I was getting confused because
Leon. They introduced Leon.
Right, I was getting it mixed up. That is on me. Because I was trying to do it chronologically in my head, and I have to remember the games aren't quite chronological.
Yeah, same.
But no, that's where they introduced Leon and Claire and the quote-unquote romance they had. Which, honestly, I will say it. I prefer Claire and Leon over Leon and Ada.
I honestly do too.
I just don't like Ada.
Like...
Especially once you find out, the truth about her and everything.
Yeah, which... She's still intriguing as hell to me, but...
But yeah, so... With Resident Evil 2, thank you for the reminder there, Matt. To be fair, again, it's been a long time since I've played the original games, and I'm going off of my memory of, cutscenes on YouTube and everything right now.
Yeah, no, it was 2. I totally forgot.
But, no, you are completely right. It was what introduced Leon S. Kennedy, who is such an adorable idiot. He's a badass, don't get me wrong. He kicks ass, he takes names, he shoots zombies.
He's very intelligent.
But God, can he be an idiot? Which is where Claire comes in.
As hell.
Which is where I believe Claire's the younger sister.
Yes, by like
6 or 7 years. Was it 6?
6. I looked it up.
Okay, yeah, I forgot. Just random stuff like that. The younger Redfield sibling of 6 years, Claire Redfield, who, let's face it, between her and Leon, they had 6 working brain cells. He had 1.
She had 5. He had 1. Maybe 2 if she was feeling generous.
Claire was, in fact, in my opinion, the reason Leon isn't dead.
Yeah, you're right. I wanted to say no, but you're
I was gonna say, fight me on this. We can go. We can fucking do this.
Yeah, no, you're not. You're not wrong. Yes, Leon is extremely intelligent.
But he's not wise.
He's not wise by any means. But I think his personality, his real personality, shows a lot more in 4.
It does, because in 2, he
was the bright-eyed rookie in 2.
He was, which, oh my god, my precious sweet little rookie baby.
He didn't ask for this.
Did any of them ask for this?
No.
Except for Wesker?
Yeah,
This is literally what Wesker wanted. He wanted complete global domination via weeding out the weak. And then there was these asshole protagonists getting in his way every time he turned around.
Yeah.
But, with Leon, he had less to do with Wesker and more to do with everything else. Yes, he was involved in the grand scheme of things, but the real depth of his plot, I want to say, came out in 4.
Yeah.
Where he was dealing with Las Plagas.
Yeah.
But then there's Claire, who... God bless that woman.
The only connection she had was Chris. She went looking for him.
Yeah, because, your brother goes missing. There's reports that, Stars is having problems. Oh yeah, by the way, there's also dead people in the street. I bet you'd think what I thought. Bitch is dead.
Yeah.
But Claire being Claire, and that's something that they've kept true to all the games, is Claire has always been the curious one. She has always been...
And stubborn.
She has always been the stubborn one, and that's saying a lot, because Chris is pretty stubborn. But she's always been the inquisitive one, the one who, thinks first, punches later.
Mm-hmm.
And she figured, hey, maybe my brother's not dead, and went to Raccoon City, and surprise, there's dead people everywhere.
And with that, I'm going to add to that, with her being the inquisitive one, a lot of that, too, you could tell she was the investigative one.
Mm-hmm.
Which was great on her character, and it's what actually made me like Claire to begin with.
Which, more power to you. I liked her at first, but she just kind of annoyed me, to be honest. I will fully admit, Claire's not my favorite.
I could do you one better. Ashley.
We are not talking about that just yet. That is a whole nother section for when we get to that game.
Okay, so back on 2.
Yes, back to 2. Because, if I remember right, they met a little girl who the fandom knows as Miss Sherry Birkin, a.k.a. the love interest for Wesker's son in 6.
6. Yes.
Yeah, Jake, that little shit. I'm sorry, he's a little shit. Anyway, she becomes the love interest later on, but Leon and Claire find this little girl, and it's like, oh, hey.
She's 12, I think.
Yeah, she's between 10 and 12, if I remember right. It was really hard to tell, because again, the graphics were good, but...
The remake was better on that.
It was, and they did stay pretty true to the story, minus, leaving out Wesker.
Fuckers.
It just doesn't feel like it without him.
It really doesn't.
But yeah, so... they find and save this little girl who eventually becomes a big old, big time BSAA agent.
And then we also find out that she is the daughter of one of the scientists that work for Umbrella Corps.
Oh, right. What was his name? William Birkin. And if I remember right, he was actually one of the ones who stole the T-virus from Dr. Ashford to turn it into a bioweapon, whereas Dr. Ashford wanted to use the original virus, the progenitor virus, to help people who had incurable diseases or had paralysis and stuff like that. He wanted to use it for good, whereas Birkin and Oswell were like, but the potential to make bioweapons, we could be rich, we could be overlords, let's destroy the planet, but helping people. Nah, bitch.
That's exactly how it went.
You can't tell me otherwise. But the other interesting thing too, with 2, it brought in one of my wife's favorite characters. A very impractical, high heel wearing, red dress wearing, crossbow shooting woman by the name of Ada Wong. I don't like her. I will say that right now before we go too much further. Ada Wong drives me insane.
I like her as, I wouldn't say protagonist or antagonist.
She's more of the chaotic neutral one who's just like, I'm gonna play both sides and fuck all y'all.
Yeah, pretty much. She's literally in it for herself. And I've been looking at it from the standpoint of what would happen in this actual world, and she's doing something that I think a lot of people would actually do. If it benefits her and staying alive, she'll do it. And if she gets paid, great.
But to me, the problem there becomes, well, if you don't help stop this virus from spreading, who's left to pay you? She's thinking about the short term. In the long term, if there's nobody left to pay you, then what's the point? Mm-hmm. At first, I thought she was an intriguing character.
Yeah, I think that so too. But now that I've gone on more,
honestly, to me, now she just seems like every other money-grubbing, neutral, pro-antagonist, I guess. I don't know what the actual term is for the neutral parties in this. But, she's just that neutral one who's in it for herself and doesn't think about the consequences of any of her actions. Because her actions have had severe consequences.
They have.
I mean, have you seen the state of the world?
Yeah. Not
to mention, by the way, this is not a spoiler-free podcast, she's a former Umbrella researcher. She was one of the ones who knew about the virus and was just like, I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
It's one of those that she's a good character if they had written her a little differently, in my opinion.
They worked, again, it's more of the, I see, she intrigues the hell out of me.
Mm-hmm. And then, with 2, woo, the day is saved. By the way, we're gonna probably blow up the city.
Not probably, we're gonna.
I don't actually remember if they did or not.
They did.
They did?
Yeah.
Okay, yep, no, you're right.
At the very end.
It's, again, I'm going off of memory.
Because one of the last things you have to do is get the fuck out.
Right, because you have, that 15 minutes to get to the top of the tower, get on the helicopter before the tactical nuke drops, and,
or the train, depending on which.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm thinking helicopter. Oh, no, you know what it is? I'm getting it confused with the live-action movie.
Yeah.
Because the live-action movie, they had to get to a helicopter.
Yeah, but they were...
And then they were met by Nemesis.
Characters.
Nemesis they kept true, though.
Oh, Nemesis was done phenomenally.
But then that led us into 3, which was...
taking place at the exact same time.
Just in a different part of the city, which we were led by Jill Sandwich and, if you listen to the fandom, Hunky McHunkerson, Carlos.
Okay, they did him better in the remake, I have to say that much.
I don't like him.
I like him more in the remake.
I still don't like him.
I don't either, but if I were to choose between OG and new...
If I had to choose between the two, then yes, I would pick the new Carlos.
Like, he's alright.
And the cool thing is that with 3, it was the same story as 2, but just told from a different perspective. And I like that concept a lot, because a lot of times when they introduce main characters, not necessarily, side characters or anything like this, NPCs that you save once or twice, actual main characters that you have either played or will play in future games, I definitely sit there going, wait a minute, what happened on their side of things?
Mm-hmm. Resident Evil's really good about showing you that.
They wherever they can, they will show you multiple perspectives. But with 3, it also introduced somebody who I hate with a burning passion, almost as much as I hate Ashley, if not a little more. Nikolai.
He's a great villain.
He is.
He's
not as good as Wesker.
He's a great villain, but oh god, I cannot stand him. Especially in the remake, every time he showed up, I wanted to shoot him in the face.
I tried. I wasted ammo, I will fully admit.
Sam.
Also, Resident Evil, one thing. Why is it so hard to find ammunition in the original games? Like, in the original games, believe it or not, the new games from, 5 onward, they throw ammo at you left and right.
It's great.
In the original games, 4 and back, including Chronicles, including Code Veronica, it is impossible to find ammunition. And God forbid you need healing items.
Yeah. It's a little more true to real life.
Mm-hmm. But I'm playing a video game to get away from real life. I don't want to emulate real life. I want ammo to be in every barrel I shatter.
Same. But no, the one that's kind of realistic with ammo to me, at least, with the exception of picking it up from drops, is 5.
Yeah, because, and we'll get into the mechanics of it later, but with 5, they made it not as realistic, but a little more.
Mm-hmm.
But, the plot of 3, it revealed just how deep all this shit went.
Mm-hmm.
2 gave us a really cool perspective of 2 people who didn't see the mansion incident, who didn't know what was going on. They were just kind of thrown in. 3 was okay, we've already dealt with this, and now we have to deal with this again? What the shit, bro?
Yeah, and something that I think we should, touch on base here is Jill was researching everything.
Oh, she was. And they covered that in the remake as well.
They did. They covered it very well.
The problem is that her research got her noticed. And Nemesis was originally sent out to destroy the original STARS operatives that survived. Jill being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was after Jill, Barry, and Chris, I believe, because they were the 3 survivors of STARS.
Yeah. Well, Chris they didn't know about because they didn't know where the hell he was.
No, but once they realized Chris was alive,
yeah.
He became the top of Wesker's priority list because, goddammit, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
So, Nemesis was originally sent out to deal with the stragglers. And he almost succeeded.
He got Barry.
It was, honestly, 3, the original 3 Nemesis was the most terrifying Resident Evil I had played to that point. 2 was a little creepy. 1 was more of a case of, this is so cheesy, this can't be scary.
Except those few scares that get you.
The few jump scares here and there.
That catch you off guard.
It didn't have the atmosphere that 3 had. Because 3, Nemesis could have showed up at any second. As far as you knew. Unless you'd played through the game before, you did not know when he was going to show up. For all you know, if you went to break that box to see if there was a handgun ammo in there so you could have 6 more shots, you might not die.
He might be right behind you.
He could have been hiding in the box for all you knew.
Mm-hmm.
Not literally, but it could have been that level of surprise. And then, same thing, Resident Evil 3, Nemesis, Jill and Carlos make it out. Carlos was with, I don't remember the name of the group.
UBCS.
Was it UBCS? I don't remember what it stands for, but it was another anti-terrorist group.
It was with Umbrella.
Oh no, it was Umbrella Corporation. No, Umbrella.
Let me look it up.
Biological Containment Sector. No. I was able to rattle this off yesterday. Why can't I suddenly remember it? But he was with Nikolai and the others with the UBCS. Excuse me. Or was it UCBS?
The Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasure Service.
That. Basically, find the biohazards. Destroy.
Mm-hmm.
So, with 3, same thing. You gotta get out of the city. We're about to nuke this place. There's going to be nothing left. If you want to survive...
Get the fuck out.
Run with a prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And
get either fly or get out underground.
And pray nothing survives. And then... So, it was a little quiet with the Resident Evil series for a little bit. To be fair, Capcom had a lot going on.
They also had DMC.
They had DMC. They were helping out with Silent Hill. I don't remember if Silent Hill is actually a Capcom game, but I know they were helping out because it was along the same genre. And then we fast forward to Resident Evil 4. And the stupid Chainsaw Sisters. Anybody who's played 4 knows that the chainsaw-wielding villagers you have to fight are the biggest bullshit in the entire fandom. But one thing I loved about 4, because 4 sets you up where you're in Spain of all places. Leon is the main character that you play as.
Hi, Leon.
And
it's a Konami game.
Oh, it's Konami?
It's Konami.
Okay, that's why. But, excuse me. So, Leon has gone from being RCPD because, Raccoon City kind of ceased to exist, to being in the President's Secret Service. And he's going to Spain because the President's daughter got kidnapped. A woman by the name of Ashley. The most useless NPC in the history of useless NPCs.
Throw her in a trash can and leave her there.
I wish you could. Anyway, so you're in the back of a car talking to these 2 officers who have been sent with you to help out because, as far as I know, Leon's not exactly fluent in European Spanish or anything, and he kind of needs a helping hand.
He does.
And Claire's not there to be like, hey, dipshit. So, something happens. I think they hit a tree.
It was something along those lines. It's been a while.
It has been a while. What we need to do is we need to get the games and replay them, which we'll probably end up streaming. Excuse me.
On our personal accounts.
But something happens and the cops go to investigate. There are screams heard and Leon's like, oh shit, I have to go be the hero. And you start walking and there's this really run-down, creepy-looking village. And people looking like they have the worst ever dermatitis ever. Only come to find out that, oh hey, these guys are infected with this thing called Las Plagas. This doesn't sound very good. So what does Leon do? Does he phone in for help? Does he call for backup? Does he let anybody know where he is?
That, yes.
Only when Helena calls him and is like, you haven't checked in. What are you doing?
Yeah.
He intended to go on without letting anybody know. And just went to go do his thing.
Yeah, no. You legit, the only reason anybody knows where you are is because Helena's like, hey, dipshit.
Pretty much. I love Leon, don't get me wrong. And Matt Mercer did a wonderful job with his voice in 6. But he is not smart.
He's intelligent, but he's not smart.
Yeah. And so you go through the village, you find this guy named, I think his name was Luis.
It's been too long, I don't
Luis.
fucking remember.
This guy who looks like the mixture of Miguel and Tulio from Road to El Dorado in one person.
I hate that you're not wrong.
And he's there looking for his sister, I believe. His sister or his girlfriend, one or the other.
Somebody related to him in some way, shape, or form.
So, what do you do after meeting this stranger in the middle of a village where there's people trying to kill you? Obviously, you trust them and team up. Wait, is that not how this works?
Hey, it's video game logic, and clearly every other source of media logic.
I mean, it works in the movies, right? And it works in video games, it obviously works in real life. Hey, honey, let's go to a zombie-infested village and go make friends.
Okay. Sounds fun. Hey, you do get some healing items off of them every once in a while.
Occasionally, if they actually remember to heal you. Because the AI is not always the smartest. But, so that leads us into finding out that, hey, Wesker's not the only one with these really nasty-ass biohazard bullshit. You get to meet this wonderful, just amazingly charming antagonist by the name of Salazar. And if you can't tell by the wonderful, cheerful strain in my voice, I wanted to strangle him the first time he opened his stupid mouth.
Oh, same.
He is condescending. He's worse than Wesker when it comes to condescending, because at least Wesker doesn't talk to you like you're a complete idiot.
He does, but he does it in such a way that it's like, yes, please, sir, can I have another?
And that's not just because we're a couple of Wesker hoes. I will fully admit that I'm a hoe for that man. But Salazar is the most... And this is comparing him to Wesker, Alex, Excella, every other antagonist we have gone up against in the Resident Evil series. He is honestly, in my opinion, the most egotistical, self-centered, self-righteous, self-important narcissist
shit
that you ever go up against. Because not only does he not have the physical prowess to take care of himself like every other antagonist, he also is running around, and as soon as you thwart his plans, he actually starts crying.
To be fair, me too, but...
He runs away crying. I'm sorry, that is not an antagonist. That is a kid throwing a temper tantrum. Plus, he looks like he's 12. I don't even know how old he actually is. I don't care how old he actually is. But Salazar was right up there with Ashley. Speaking of Ashley.
We're gonna go into there!
Surprise, surprise. The people who kidnapped Ashley are giving Las Plagas to the villagers. Which means Salazar is just like, oh, look, you're such a pretty little girl. Here, stab you in the neck. Have some virus. By the way, Leon, have some virus. People tend to forget he had the Las Plagas egg injected into him.
Yep.
Before they found the antivirus. Luckily, they got it taken care of.
Because Leon, do you really think he's going to go down that?
They find Ashley, and the first thing she does isn't, thanks for coming to save me, or who are you? It's, it took you long enough.
And it was that moment that I was like, alright, I'm leaving you here. And then she followed you, and I was like, God damn it.
Yeah, no, almost everybody I know in the fandom hates Ashley with a passion. Because of one line in particular. Leon, help!
I'm getting flashbacks.
Yeah, like, at least other NPCs that follow you in the other games can take care of themselves.
Shit, even Sherry could take care of herself to an extent.
And that's saying a lot because...
She was like 12.
Yeah. But, like, with Ashley, she was getting kidnapped, getting injured, basically making you backtrack so many times. I'm pretty sure her getting stuck and caught and captured all the time is why there is so many hours of gameplay. Because, like, 4 hours of it is just backtracking to save the girl.
That's why you throw her in a trash can.
Unfortunately, you cannot leave her there.
I know. But we can dream.
I wish you could leave Ashley behind. I genuinely am just like, why can't Leon just call and be like, sorry, Mr. President, your daughter didn't make it. I don't know what happened. I found her dead in a prison cell. We weren't able to retrieve her. I'm sorry.
Which probably would have worked.
Probably because, you know, the president's not in Spain. He doesn't know what happened.
He doesn't have to know that we just...
Not even. She got infected. It's a shame that, you know, she didn't get the antivirus in time. Just saying.
She didn't make it in time for us to get it.
But the cool thing with 4, like, Ashley and Salazar aside, the cool thing with 4 is it actually introduced us to the next strain of the virus.
Mm-hmm.
Because you had the T virus, which stood for the Tyrant virus. You had the Progenitor virus, which was the first virus, the one that started all of this, that they wanted to use to help people, but, you know, surprise, surprise, money-grubbing millionaires wanted to become billionaires and sell weapons to the world.
And then there was the G virus.
The G virus, which I do not remember which that one stands for.
I don't either, but...
But then there was, beyond the G virus, there was Las Plagas, which, it was the same parasitic virus, but they combined it, and I actually looked into this because I was curious. The previous viruses, they combined with different strains of Ebola. Las Plagas, they actually infused with leech DNA. Like, to get the parasitic effect that they needed for Las Plagas to take root at the base of the skull and to take over the brain and take over the host, they infused it with leech DNA. They played God.
They did. They injected it with an actual parasite.
Yeah, and who better to model it after than the parasite that literally latches on and absorbs everything from the body than a leech. Like, if you...
It's really, like...
From a scientific standpoint, it's fascinating. I'm not going to go around and start, experimenting with viruses or anything anytime soon.
No, not at all. But from a scientific standpoint...
From a hypothetical scientific standpoint. Let me clarify. From a hypothetical scientific standpoint, so that nobody comes kicking down the door. I think the FBI are on the way now. I think the BSAA is on their way. Chris is going to punch the door open with a boulder.
Okay. Take me to our Lord and Savior, I mean the
Overlord Wesker. I'll jump in a volcano at this point. I don't care. It's got to be better than 2020.
Honestly, let's be real.
Wesker's getting off easy right now.
He's just chilling. He's chilling.
Well, nah, he's probably in the sauna at this point, because there's no chilling where he's at.
Yeah, you're right.
But anyway, so 4 introduced us to the cool concept of the Los Plagas, which we then learned later the actual name of was Ouroboros. Los Plagas was just the villager name for it because it was the plague. Mm-hmm. The villagers started getting sick. They didn't know what this virus was, so they just called it Las Plagas.
Plague. Which, to be fair, it's not far off.
It wasn't classified as a plague just yet at that point. It would have been classified as a smaller pandemic before it left the village, which Salazar made sure happened because he's a little bitch. Also, Resident Evil 4 brought to light just how OP and bullshit the regenerators were. If you did not have a shit ton of grenades or the riot shotgun, you spent every last bullet trying to make sure that fucker didn't, go full on hentai on you. With their gross ass tentacles and ugh, gross.
Yeah.
Although I have to admit, it was satisfying as hell watching Ashley die from the regenerator the first, dozen times.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh crap, I have to progress the game. I will fully admit that every chance I got, I let her die. If I just needed a pick-me-up. But yeah, so 4 ended. They're heading back to the U.S. Ashley is alive. Leon's alive.
Leon's alive, that's what matters. But, I don't actually...
Come to find out...
We don't actually know what happened to them after that? To, at least Ashley after that?
If I remember right, she went into hiding because, as they're returning to the U.S., Leon gets a call from Helena. There's an outbreak in the U.S., which led us into... I'm doing I believe it was Umbrella Chronicles that came after that?
I think so. Chronologically, I believe... No, technically Umbrella Chronicles comes after 5.
Right, because that's in between, technically. But either way, the country is in shambles. Anarchy has happened. The president has gotten infected.
Surprise, surprise.
Because Americans don't know how to wear a stupid mask. Anyway, so, get back to America. The world's in shambles. Roll credits. Fast forward years later, and we're in South Africa.
Why are we in South Africa?
Because Chris Redfield, being Chris Redfield, has joined the BSAA and meets up with this woman who's actually very attractive and talk about thighs of betrayal by the name of Sheva. God, I love that woman.
Same.
She is attractive physically, but I love her strictly for the fact of she does not take Chris's bullshit.
She doesn't. It's great.
She actually
Scary
calls
lesbian.
him out. Yeah, her, Jill, and Claire are the stars of the Scary Lesbian Club. Let's be honest here. Let's be honest.
Hey.
If I didn't make that joke at least once this podcast, I was going to be very upset with myself.
I mean, even if they aren't gay, they have massive gay energy.
At least bi energy.
Yeah, they have massive bi energy. It's great.
But so with 5, they're following a lead on Albert Wesker. Woo! I mean, oh no, the villain. How terrible. No, we can't love him.
We can't love him. We can't be absolutely head over heels in fucking love with him.
Not at all. No, that's against the rules. Anyway, so they're tracking a lead about some bioweapons that have been sent to South Africa to a, I can't remember his name, but the sleazy broker.
Yeah, I remember.
Or the sleazy weapons dealer. And this guy is selling what we learned in 4 was, Las Plagas, also known as Ouroboros, was a parasitic virus. He is selling it to all these African warlords and all their minions, and suddenly we have an entire South African country filled with angry terrorists using this virus to become the most powerful, to become the very best that no one ever was.
They're playing God is what they're doing.
They are, and Wesker does have a god complex, so it matches up with his MO. And so you're going through, and Sheva gives you all her information. She keeps you alive. Very good at keeping you alive.
She's good at keeping Chris's dumb ass in gear.
You're not wrong.
She will kick him into gear, quite literally.
Yeah, no, she kicks his ass, verbally a few times during the cutscenes. Just no, we can't do that, you dumb fuck.
Yep. I love Sheva.
Sheva is amazing.
I'm incredibly gay for Sheva.
Wow, I feel so loved, honey. Then again, I can't say much because I'm just how you doing?
Yeah, you're right.
But the cool part is that, so Wesker died. Quote unquote. He and Jill decided to take a dive out the window. Jill wanted to go for a swim and she didn't want to go alone, so she took Wesker with her. During the whole mess where I believe they killed Oswell. Lord Spencer, as many people know him. Mm-hmm. Because Oswell was the man who raised Wesker, and I'm pretty sure is 150% the reason that Wesker has a god complex, and it has so many anger control issues. And God, does that man have anger control issues. But so, Chris is of the belief that his BFF is dead. His BFF, Jill. If y'all don't get that reference, you're too young for this podcast. LMG, my BFF, Jill. My wife is gonna punch me by the end of this. I'm just waiting for it.
Not on podcast.
Damn. No witnesses this time, guys.
Yeah, no, because after all the bullshit they went through, wouldn't you assume that she's dead?
Well, yeah, she jumped out of a building on a cliff in the middle of a typhoon, basically, into the ocean against a rocky cliff. Bet you think what I thought.
She's gone. Bitch is dead.
Damn, bitch, she dead.
Yeah, pretty much.
And come to find out, they find, what's his nuts? I'm gonna remember his name at the weirdest second. Ricardo Irving. Because, he had all the files and everything, and he left a file behind when this mysterious plague doctor wearing cloaked figure saved him from getting shot the fuck up by Chris and Sheva. Sheva. English is a thing. He leaves behind a file, and Chris is just like, what this? Oh shit, Jill's alive! And suddenly the game becomes less about stopping the bioterrorism and more about, where's Jill? Instead of finding Ouroboros, it's finding Jill.
Also, can we talk... Okay, I'm gonna jump in here because this also ties into Revelations.
You're right, it does.
That whole fucking game. I actually just played it recently.
Have fun, by the way.
I already did. I played it.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly, the controls on the DS are really good.
Yeah, no, I still did not like Revelations.
The controls on the DS were actually kind of fantastic. But I love how the whole fucking game of Revelation is, where's Chris, where's Jill? That's the whole game, right there. That's the plot of the game.
But yeah, so 5 takes us down this wonderful trip through South Africa. Beautiful maps, beautiful gameplay. It was one of the first ones where you could actually control your camera more than just what the walkway you were in allowed. Mm-hmm. Which I loved because, don't get me wrong, I loved 1 through 4.
The story It's great.
I hate how the camera works in those games.
I hate the controls. Like, I actually went back, because I never actually played 4.
You got through, like, the first pathway when you were like, no, fuck this, I'm out.
I could not do it, like, especially since I couldn't aim my fucking gun.
Well, you can aim it, but the controls are reversed. It's not the right stick to aim, or it's not the left stick to aim, it's the right stick to aim.
I know, and I hated it. I could not do it. I could not do it.
You actually threw the controller at me and screamed, how did you do this?
No, I believe my exact words were, fuck this, no, I'm done.
Right. And then I made the comment of, this is what I had to deal with before 5, 6, and everything else.
I almost strangled you.
I welcome death at this point, because I was promised a zombie apocalypse for 2020. Where's my zombies? Wesker, you're slacking.
Wesker, hit me up.
When's orientation?
When's orientation? Dude, like, you want someone to stroke your ego? I'll stroke your ego.
Like, and that is not a joke for the internet to enjoy.
No, it's not. But
anyway, so we find this. We go on. There's Regenerators. There's T-Virus. There's Executioner. There's all this shit going on. And suddenly there's this chick who claims to be Wesker's girlfriend, fling, not sure
Bitch.
what, by the name of Excella.
Ugh.
Please tell me, honey, how you felt the first time you saw her.
I wanted to shoot her. I wanted her dead from the very first time she opened her goddamn mouth. Not because I'm jealous of her with Wesker, because that I will fully admit, yes, I am.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think we all were. She's the one who got to hang all over that leather vest of his.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time,
Bitch.
like, there was one line of hers that actually intrigued me, though.
Mm-hmm.
My vision combined with his.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to make this world a reality. Surprise, surprise, she dies.
Because, anybody that's associated with Wesker eventually dies. Because there is nobody who can be above him.
Can we talk about how
and her inferior genetics.
Yeah, that was actually the thing. But he was just like, nah, bitch, I didn't like her. I kept her around because she was useful.
He actually says, after he injects her with the super virus, basically, the version that he eventually injects himself with, it's the quote-unquote final version of Ouroboros. Her body, like, her genetics could not bond with the virus, which is why she became that gross, fleshy, Cronenberg-esque lump of horror and grossness. And it was very interesting because he actually takes a look at her as she's on the ground, screaming in pain. He can tell by a glance, oh, this isn't going to work. She's inferior. He actually says to Chris, you have the option of chasing after me or leaving her to her own her own devices. Not in those exact words, but basically says you can either catch me or deal with the fact you're going to have a giant mutant on your hands. Bye.
Have fun.
And as usual, you hear, Wesker! Followed by, Chris! And suddenly you have to go into a boss fight.
Chris! Oh, by the way, you saved Jill. You saved Jill in that time.
Right, I forgot about that. You find out Jill. That the Plague Doctor mask-wearing hooded figure that saves the creepy Ricardo dude is, surprise, surprise, Jill Valentine.
My girl.
And we got one of the most famous Wesker lines of all time from that scene. 7 minutes. That is all I have time to play with you. I apologize ahead of time. I warned you at the beginning of this. There's going to be a ton of bad Wesker impersonations. DC Douglas, if you ever watch this, I apologize. I am not worthy.
But yeah, no, we saved Jill. Turns out she was being controlled by Wesker.
What's funny is she was actually being controlled by the virus.
Yeah, the virus.
But her
Wesker
T-body antivirus. Because her body had the natural T-body antigens after the first couple of games, because she was supposed to have left and fucking right. And much like with a cold or a flu, you build up antibodies. Because of that, it didn't mutate her, but it was just enough to keep her brainwashed.
Mm-hmm.
And she had that wonderful little, spider device on her chest that looked very painful.
It did.
My ribs hurt just thinking about it. Yeah, no, when you rip it off because you have to rip this off of her chest to wake her up. And I'm just like, I'm pretty sure every medical professional ever would tell you this is a bad idea. Just call it a hunch, but I think that's attached to bone and tissue and nerve systems.
Yeah, but she's fine.
Oh yeah, no, she's totally fine. But yeah, you defeat Excella, you save Jill, you do all this stuff. You get to the final boss, and you're fighting by a volcano.
This is some bullshit.
My wife's gonna have a very strong opinion as I go into details here.
This is some fucking bullshit. I refuse. I fucking refuse.
There's this, there's viruses being transported in giant missiles, and he is going to unleash Ouroboros into the atmosphere for complete global saturation. If you ever have a chance to watch DC Douglas's outtakes from that, they are golden. They're on his YouTube. It is beautiful.
You can tell how much fun he was having.
DC Douglas sponsor us.
No, DC Douglas, just give me shout-outs sometimes.
Please. Anyway. So, it comes down to, the last 5 games have been building up to the final showdown between Wesker and Chris. Like, yeah, Jill's important, yeah, Claire's important, but let's be honest here. The real rivalry from the first game has been Chris and Wesker.
Yeah, and actually, you don't really see much of Claire.
Not
you hear of her, but
not in those games. You actually deal with her a lot more in the non-numerical games.
Right.
But like the big thing is that with everything leading up to this, he actually flat out tells Wesker, "You put my sister in danger, you fuckhead." And Wesker's just like, "She was inferior, just like you." And huge fight ensues.
I refuse. I fucking refuse!
Wesker, he injects himself with this superior virus, this final version of Ouroboros. And he injects himself with a lot of it. Like, what would be, if he wasn't already genetically modified, what would be lethal doses to an average human being who was compatible with the virus? Not even going to mention what might happen to somebody who's not compatible.
Death.
Explosion. Just dead.
At least it went quick.
You better hope it goes quick, because if your nervous system is still intact, you're feeling every second of that while you're conscious. Ow, that hurts just thinking about it.
Yep.
But no, so shit goes down. Wesker starts beating Chris around like a fucking redhead stepchild. He's throwing him around. He's kicking the shit out of this guy. So what's Chris's response? There's a boulder. I'm gonna punch it.
Boulder on him.
So,
I fucking refuse to believe that Walbert Wesker, our Lord and Destroyer, got taken out by a fucking pebble!
So, Wesker gets thrown into this volcano by this rock, and then, also takes a couple of missiles to the face. So, first we assume that's the end of Wesker. As much as we don't want to admit it, that's how they painted the ending.
I fucking refuse to believe that asshole's dead.
That being said, some data miners went digging through some voice lines that were recorded but never actually put into a couple of the games. One of the games being Umbrella Chronicles.
I love data miners.
Umbrella Chronicles technically happens between 5 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
There's a line they found that DC Douglas actually recorded, but was not put into the game, and the line is, "Rumors of my demise have been greatly over-exaggerated."
Can we talk about how happy DC was when he found out that people actually dug it out?
He actually forgot he had read that line. But what makes me think is that Chronicles happens after 5. Because that was the time when he quote-unquote died. Like
and
the 5th time.
Chronicles, it was going over, this is what happened, and here is a bunch of stuff.
Here's what happened. Well, this shit was going on over here. This was going on over here. That was going on over there. Here's what's happening. Oh, yeah, by the way, meet these characters. Billy. All I have to say is Billy. I actually did not like Chronicles. I understand that it was, like... I'm trying to think. It had good plot. But the gameplay pissed me off because it did not feel right.
It didn't.
But with Chronicles, they did data mine that.
And Capcom has come out and said, yes, everything that is actually in here is canon.
Even though they didn't put it in the game, I'm still holding them to their word.
Same.
That being said, we come up to 6. 6 was a massive game changer for the Resident Evil franchise.
It was... They fixed the controls, for one.
Well, A, they fixed the controls. B, it was the first game where Wesker was not the main villain. Like, in the other games, even if he wasn't in them directly, he was still the mastermind. He was the puppet master. In this one...
This is where he's been quote-unquote dead for like 6-7 years.
If I remember right, Pierce, when he finds Chris in the middle of Siberia, or wherever the hell he is...
I think it's Siberia.
It's somewhere of Slavic... what's the word? Slavic populace?
Mm-hmm.
But when he finds him, he mentions it's been like 6 or 7 years. You need to let it go. You need to move on. And
I know the cutscene you're talking about.
By the way, this shit's going on. Are you gonna just sit here and be a little bitch and cry into your vodka about it?
That's basically what Pierce says. Like,
Captain! Pierce, the fucking Labrador Retriever puppy.
I love Pierce so much. Y'all don't understand. I love him so much.
And with 6, we got a little bit deeper into story, because it wasn't just 1 or 2 characters you could play through as.
There were like 6.
If I remember, let's see, it was Leon, Ada, Chris, because that's how you find Pierce.
Pierce.
You could play as, I think you could play as Jill. I actually need to look this up, because I actually lost my notes.
Sherry and Jake.
You could... Oh, that's another good point. They introduced the offspring of Albert F. Wesker.
As much of a little fucking shit as he is.
Don't get me wrong, I love Troy Baker. Troy Baker is an amazing voice actor. He does a phenomenal job at making you want to punch Jake in the face.
Oh, no.
Repeatedly.
As much as I love Jake, I will admit that I want to punch that man in the face. Repeatedly.
Mm-hmm. With a brick.
But at the same time, I love him. I love him so much.
Okay, yeah, so you can play through as Leon, Chris, Jake, and Ada. But with each of those, you can also play through as their quote-unquote partner.
Yes.
Except for Ada, because Ada works alone. But with Jake, it was interesting, because a lot of people didn't want to believe that Wesker was his dad. Because there's no way that this megalomaniac, this god-complex asshole...
Reproduced.
Not necessarily reproduced, but more of saw a woman that he felt in his eyes, this is from Wesker's point of view, was worthy to carry his genetics. Mm-hmm. Because we know what he thinks of humanity.
We do. Honestly, I relate to him more and more every day.
Humans suck. That's his whole moral is humanity is a sickness. I am the cure. I don't remember what that quote's from, but it's from one of the movies that I've watched recently.
Either way, yes, please.
But yeah, so you introduce Jake, who, because he's Wesker's son, he is immune to the viruses.
Mm-hmm.
Because around the time, because Jake's like 20-something.
He's younger than Sherry.
He's younger than Sherry, but not by much.
He's like 6 years younger than her or something like that. There's the actual number somewhere. I just forget what it is.
But either way, because of his relation to Wesker, he is immune to the virus.
He was born immune.
Just, there is no ways about it. He cannot contract the C virus, the T virus, any of these. And when Sherry finds him, he had just injected himself with the C virus, which is the main virus of 6. And she takes a look and she's like, "Are you fucking stupid? Wait, you're not zombie. The fuck is this?"
And then we also find out that Sherry is also immune.
Sherry was immune, though, because it's Sherry Birkin. Do you think William was going to let his daughter risk getting the virus?
No, absolutely not. And if we're going by the remake, too, she had gotten the antivirus already.
She did. And a lot of it, too, is... at least my personal theory, is that William gave her microdoses to slowly build up a tolerance for her. kind of like how the flu shot is microdoses of the flu.
Yeah.
And then you add the antivirus on top of that, and yeah.
Bitch is immune.
Okay, so Jake Mueller was born in 1992. I'm only a year older than him. Hon, he's only, if you go by actual timeline, like what year it is now, he's only 28. But right off the bat, it became, oh my god, you're immune. So this means you're going to come help us by making an antivirus with your blood, right?
No.
Nah, fam.
No. We'll pay you. All right.
Sherry's just like, we'll do whatever you want. Will you pay me?
All right.
Yeah, we'll pay you. Sweet, let's go.
That's pretty much that entire interaction. Just, we'll pay you. Okay.
And the entire time. Okay. So, in Resident Evil 6, he is only 20 years old. It takes place in 2012. And the interesting thing with Jake is that he's a mercenary. There's no two ways about it. You find him, he's part of a mercenary group.
Mm-hmm.
But he tries to come off as heartless. He tries to be this complete and utter jackass.
Like, you can tell that he's trying as well. It is definitely a facade.
But the problem is that the further you go along in 6, because Resident Evil 6 takes place over 6 months. From like, I want to say November of 2012 to April, May of 2013. Over that 6 months, he actually starts developing feelings for Sherry. Not necessarily romantic. But he definitely cares about her. Like, she gets hurt in one of the cutscenes, and he actually loses his shit. And I believe he makes the comment of, oh, look at that. Guess my dad had a little bit of human after all. And then he turns around and goes, oh, wait a minute. That was my mother. Because Jake does not hide the fact that he hates his father.
No. He's very, very vocal about it.
And, I mean, if your dad was Albert Wesker and just kind of vanished out of nowhere before you were even born and left your mom with nothing...
You'd be a little pissed, too.
Yeah.
Especially since, like, and then find out everything that he did, you'd be more than bitter.
Oh, no, if I was in a situation, I would have hunted him down myself.
Mm-hmm.
And either told him off to his face, or just said fucking put a shotgun in his mouth. And then I probably would have gotten killed because Wesker's a fucking god. He's god tier at this point.
He really is. And that's not just because I'm thirsty for Wesker.
I love you, honey. You're thirsty as fuck.
So are you.
We'll talk about that later. But yeah, so 6, it covers all the different storylines. With Leon, it's... who was he teamed up with? It wasn't Claire.
I forgot her name.
But, like, with Chris, you were obviously with Pierce Nivens.
Captain!
And then, with freaking Jake, it was Jake and Sherry. And, totally no romantic feelings there.
Totally not. As I go off to go ship them.
You have fun with that, honey. I genuinely, as much as I enjoy the idea, to me, it just doesn't seem to work. He's too much of an asshole and she's too soft.
Yeah. She does call him out on his bullshit, though.
She does, but it doesn't change the fact of, oh boy, here we go again.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, you team up with different characters, and...
Let's just say they keep you alive.
They really do.
Because I say this as a player, we're kind of dumb.
Yeah, because with Leon, it was him and Helena.
That's what her name.
Chris was him and Piers. And it was Jake and Ada. Or not Jake and Ada, Jake and Sherry, because Ada was a complete solo. There was an option to play with a partner with her if you were playing multiplayer. But they even admitted it's a non-canonical NPC that you control, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So, at the end of 6, shit's still crazy. But
it's Resident Evil. It always will be.
They have a better handle on things. Capcom released a couple of other games, Revelations, Chronicles, stuff like that, to fill in the gaps here and there. And then they just kind of went radio silent for a while.
Mm-hmm. And then we go to 7.
So, with 7, it's... Okay, when they released 7, or at least when they released the announcement for it, they made it out to be a continuation of what happened in 6 and how it affected the rest of the country.
Mm-hmm.
With 7...
that's what I like to believe, at least.
Especially with the way that it ended. With 7, you go to Louisiana you're playing this guy named Ethan. It's a fucking waste of space. And you go to Louisiana to find your wife, who sent you this videotape that says, "Do not come find me. Don't. Stay at home. Forget about me. I'm already dead. Fuck you. Go away. I don't even love you anymore.
Be gone, thought.
Fuck off.
Be gone, thought.
Be gone, thought pocket."
What does your smart ass do?
Let's go to Louisiana.
Let's go. Let's go save my wife because she's clearly alive.
Yeah, no, your wife's totally alive when she sends you a video of her looking like she's on death's door telling you not to come find her.
And I quote, "Stay away.
Don't come find me. Just stay away."
Those were her exact words. I believe her name was Lynn? Yeah, it was.
Was it Lynn?
Yes, Lynn.
Right, I was thinking of Evelyn, but no, Evelyn is the little girl / old lady.
Yeah, which, again, this is not a spoiler-free show.
No, there will be spoilers everywhere. If you don't like it, I'm sorry, you'll have to tune out for a minute. Or just suffer through spoilers.
Yeah, no. 7, let me talk about the gameplay for a second. 7 is done completely in first person, which is not normal for a Resident Evil game.
Umbrella Chronicles was in first person, but it was done more as a arcade shooter. It was meant to be played with, like, you know, the old-fashioned SNES light guns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or if you played the Wii, the little plastic 9mm holster you had for the Wii remote.
Yep.
And that was our only real first-person Resident Evil, but we didn't really count that because, again, it was more of an arcade-style playthrough of the storylines.
With little Easter eggs here and there.
So with 7, at first I thought maybe, okay, maybe it's just the first part. Maybe you're playing the cameraman or something. No, the entire thing is in first person, and there are so many plot holes. I love Capcom. They have put out so many good games in the past. But 7, I personally felt there were way too many plot holes.
There actually were.
Let's start off with, you get to the house, you meet the family, they're all fucking crazy. By the way, you find your wife and she chops your hand off with a chainsaw. Actually cuts it completely off. It's not hanging on by a nerve or anything. It falls off and you have a stump. You get knocked out. You wake up at the dinner table. Taped to a chair. With somebody else's hand.
No, it's yours.
Is it yours?
It's yours. It's just stapled back on.
Right.
But before that, there's a cutscene of you being dragged out and then getting your hand stapled back on and all that fun stuff. I actually recently replayed it.
And what bothers me about that particular one, the plot hole there, anybody, and I mean anybody, who knows basic medicine knows that you cannot reattach tendons and nerves by just stapling it together.
No.
There has to be some form of surgical something. Or, if you look at the viruses, because the progenitor virus is a regenerative virus. It regenerates dead tissue. They claim Ethan wasn't infected.
Bullshit!
He has full control of his fingers. His hand has nerve feeling, he has control, he has motion, he has everything. But it was only stapled on. So that tells me that he was probably infected with some form of the virus. Even if it was just minuscule.
Yeah, it was enough that it was able to regenerate the tissue. At the very least.
Mm-hmm.
Which also, how is that fucker not dead?
Yeah, no, he is the definition of this one guy in the horror movie. He is that guy in the horror movie.
How are you still alive?
I have no idea. Oh, give me a big fat break.
We still need to watch that movie.
We do. That'll be another review for another day, though. But yeah, so with 7, that was the first plot hole. You have to go through this house, which it looks smaller on the outside. I don't know if it's a TARDIS house or what. But, like, it has the equivalent. It's like a fucking mansion. This shack in the middle of the swamp has the same...
That was the guest house that you went at the first time.
No, I'm talking about the regular house, too.
Oh, yeah.
The regular house had nowhere near as much space on the outside as it showed in the inside. And I'm honestly...
Even if it was underground.
And, by the way, doing underground buildings in Louisiana in the middle of a swamp, bad idea.
Yeah, that's what also got me. I was like, something's not right here.
So, there's that. And then you find out that this family got infected with a virus because of a ship that crashed that had Umbrella stuff on it. And the only reason we know that it, like, at this point, we don't know that Umbrella's even involved. We find papers, we find pictures, but nothing with Umbrella Corps on it.
No, and...
does, for the longest time, it doesn't even feel like a Resident Evil game. It still doesn't. But, like, there was nothing pointing to it being an actual Resident Evil game.
No.
Until you find out that the ship that crashed that had the virus that infected the family that is trying to mutilate you...
This is close to the very end.
It has the Umbrella Corps symbol on it. That's, like, the first actual true indication that 7 is tied into the rest of the series to me.
Yeah.
And this is, disclaimer, before you guys send us hate mail or get angry, this is our opinion. We are not the writers of the game. We are not professionals. We are simply a couple of nerds who are trying to give our opinions and are willing to talk intelligent discussions about this. So please don't send us hate mail. My wife will actually cry and then I'll send you a video of it and you'll feel bad. Anyway, come to find out that not only was the virus on the ship, it was also in the body of this little girl named Evelyn, who is apparently a were-grandma because, like, during the day she turns into an old lady and at night she's a little girl.
I don't fucking know. It's because of how the virus affected her body. It made her age go rapid.
But she can also rapidly decelerate.
No, those were, she was messing with your head.
Right. Okay, to be fair, they didn't actually explain that very well.
They didn't. English. They went into it in the DLC.
See, that's why I never played the DLC.
Yeah, no, I did.
I got too angry with it. I got too angry at Resident Evil, and I said, screw this. And after I finished 7, I was like, you know what? No, I'm done. I quit.
Yeah, like, in the paperwork you find, they briefly go over it, and Ethan's like, oh, so this is what you have to do. But no, they actually go in more in-depth with it when you play as Chris Redfield in the DLC.
And that's the other thing, too. They don't mention any characters you actually know. They don't mention any of the characters that are beloved by the fandom until that last clip. And this is contemplating the idea that most people don't have the DLC, because a lot of people don't actually buy the DLC.
Yeah, it just happened to come with mine when I got it.
Yeah. So, going off the assumption that you do not have the DLC, you don't have all the extras or whatever, the only glimpse you have of Chris Redfield is at the very end when he pulls you and the random member of the family who didn't get infected out of the swamp.
Yeah, Zoe.
Zoe, that's her name. You see Chris and he's like, I'm Chris Redfield. I'm here to help.
And then it cuts.
And then roll credits.
You should have seen me when I played that the first time.
I got a very angry phone call going, we need to go out and do something. I need to get out of the house right now. Honey, what's wrong? Just get me out of the house. And so I got in the car, went and picked them up.
This is when we were just still friends, too.
We were still just friends. We were like, we were just hanging out. This was a few months before I actually got the courage to ask you on a date.
Yeah, because I didn't get to play Resident Evil 7 when it first came out.
Mm-mm.
And I had avoided most things of it until I was able to play it.
But no, this was when we were still just friends, and I was just like, you're really pretty. I will never be able to ask you out because you're prettier than me, and I don't have a shot in hell. But so we were driving around, and she goes on this entire fucking rant about how bullshit this, bullshit that, bullshit all of this. How fucking dare you? Where's Wesker? Where's this? By the way, they completely ignored one of the main fucking characters in the entire Resident Evil franchise. 7 was the first... because the way they described it was 7 is supposed to be the reboot of 1.
Mm-hmm.
This was supposed to be the new, quote-unquote, take on the mansion incident.
Which made no sense, because they
Where
weren't
was
even
Stars?
in the same... They weren't even in the same place.
No.
And, no, let me put another thing. It wasn't even Stars. You look up at the chopper that Chris Redfield comes down from, It's Blue Umbrella. It's not Stars. It is Blue Umbrella.
Yeah, and Blue Umbrella wasn't a thing until I want to say 3?
Like, yeah, 3 or 4.
No, it was 2 or 3. No, it was 3 because it was after the fall of Raccoon City.
Right, because Blue Umbrella was supposed to be the...
We fucked up.
We fucked up. Let's...
Blue Umbrella turned out to just be the same bullshit all over again, but just disguised a little better. And they're like, fuck this, and then they formed the BSAA.
Yeah. But...
Neo Umbrella, yes. I couldn't remember the name of it. I just call it Blue Umbrella.
That's what most of the fan base calls it.
But anyway, so all this shit goes down. Shit's going sideways, left and right. And 7 leaves a lot, and I mean a lot of fans. Very angry, very hurt, and very confused.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many message boards I went on where it was a case of, where was Wesker? Where was this? Where was that? Why was Umbrella only shown in a picture?
Yeah, like, I mean, that part at least I could understand. But at the same time...
They took away the essential elements of a Resident Evil game. To me, it seems like they tried to make Outlast into Resident Evil.
It honestly felt way closer to Outlast, because this was also the time I started playing Outlast. I actually forgot that I was playing Resident Evil.
So did I, until I saw Chris Redfield at the very end and went, oh yeah, that's a thing.
No, I believe my exact words were, where the fuck have you been, you bitch?
Something like that, because I was watching your live stream. But, yeah, so, again, Capcom goes radio silent for a bit. They say they have things in the works, but they have to get stuff figured out first. And we're thinking, okay, if this is the new quote-unquote 1, the franchise is dead. A lot of fans actually said the franchise would be dead. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
I was starting to have my doubts.
As was I, and this is coming from somebody who's literally a lifelong Resident Evil fan. I've been playing it since I was like 7 years old.
Yeah, and then the remakes came out.
And then they announced Resident Evil 2, the remake. After 7, I was extremely skeptical. Albeit still a little hurt. Okay, still a lot hurt, let's be honest here.
Yeah, no, I'm still hurt.
And I thought, okay, they'll bring back the original characters, they'll bring back Wesker, it'll be fine. No Wesker.
Mentions of.
Not even.
No, they do mention him.
Or is it his sister they mention?
No, they mention Wesker, the leader of Stars.
Right. But that's all we get.
Yep.
Yeah, so no Wesker appearance, just mentions. T-Virus is going on. Raccoon City is currently in the shit. In the shit.
They pretty much kept everything the same except for Wesker.
And then we get introduced to this guy who we don't even fucking know by the name of Mr. X. Whomst the fuck do you think you are?
Unquote, Project X.
Project X, Mr. X. I believe they called him Mr. X in the game, and then you find out that he's actually the product of Project X.
Yeah.
But the problem is that Mr. X made a phenomenal villain if you're going for, like, you know, fighting against a minion. To me, fighting Mr. X felt like we were fighting a puppet.
We were.
And then with 2, they did stick very close to the source material, save for a lot of stuff that I'm still very angry about. I'm still ready to kill a bitch. And I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it. There were rumors they were going to release Resident Evil 8, but at that point there was nothing confirmed.
Yeah, now it's confirmed.
It is now. When did Resident Evil 2, the remake, come out? Like 4 years ago?
Like
3, 4, something like that. But instead of giving us Resident Evil 8, they turned around and released another remake, Resident Evil 3. Which, 3, again, bar not having Wesker, not having, you know, my wonderful evil overlord available, stuck fairly close to the original. As a matter of fact, 3 actually is the reason that we have even more evidence to hate Nikolai.
Mm-hmm.
Nikolai, the douchebag.
The douchebag.
So, honey, how about that first time he screwed you over?
We're not going there.
You don't want to go into detail?
No, I don't. I'll actually get angry. But no, I hate Nikolai, and again, it gave us more reason to hate him.
Mm-hmm.
And a comment was just brought up that I'm going to shed light upon.
Okay.
Wish 3 was handled by the main studio, and because it felt too short, it really did. They left out so much.
They did. They had the perfect opportunity to combine Resident Evil 3 Nemesis storyline with what they left out of Resident Evil 2. And we have the technology to make a longer game now. Mm-hmm. Because back then, the games were huge. The file sizes were outrageous for the time.
Yeah.
But because it wasn't handled by the main studio, a lot was left out. They actually, as far as I understand, they actually removed a couple of the main writers of the original series.
Because they're working on 8.
Yeah, but the problem is that by doing so, the 3 remakes suffered.
It did. Did I still enjoy it for what it was? Oh yeah. It was handled very well.
It was, but the problem being that...
From a gameplay standpoint.
Yeah, from the gameplay standpoint, it was pretty good. You didn't have the freedoms you had in the original 3 Nemesis. The story was a lot, like, believe it or not, as much as the graphics and the gameplay and everything was phenomenal and was updated, the story felt way more railroaded than it did in the original.
Mm-hmm, that says a lot.
It is, considering, the late 90s, early 2000s was, here's the story. You just push a button and go. But, no, like, they hinted that Wesker was going to show up in 3.
They did.
And then Resident Evil 3 Resistance happened. The multiplayer. And everybody got excited because they saw the name Wesker on the list. Come to find out, it's Albert's lesser-known twin sister, Alex.
Who is canon.
But also died before 3.
I was extremely tired, and I felt like it was a cop-out.
Mm-hmm. Like, I know they didn't want Wesker to be the center point, but that's the whole point of Resident Evil has been the team is going to thwart Wesker. That is the whole point of Resident Evil.
Yep.
And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, the final boss for 3 itself, once you got the railgun, like, it was too easy.
It was.
It didn't feel like a challenge.
You hit a button.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, I genuinely feel like we were cheated out of the super awesome boss fight we got in the original 3.
Yeah.
Because it was the same boss fight, mechanically speaking.
Yeah.
But in 3, it was actually a challenge. You actually had to have skill to get it done.
Nemesis felt a lot more difficult to me.
Safe zones were safe. Safe zones were fucking safe zones.
But, okay. They're still safe. But they're not safe if he's pursuing you already.
But that was the whole point. You ran out of ammo. You ran to a safe room. You were fine until you could craft more ammo because you stuffed stuff in your chest. But no! I ran to the safe room my first playthrough because I was being chased by Mr. X. I had no ammunition. I had no herbs. I ran to the safe room to get the stuff out of my storage. I thought I was fine. I turned around. Boom, you're dead.
I was there for that.
I threw my controller, went to the kitchen, and proceeded to punch the refrigerator. Twice.
Yep.
I had a full-blown Aaron Hansen Game Grumps style meltdown.
You did. It was kind of great. I was like, because I knew that was going to be a thing.
Yeah, you did. You didn't tell me because I didn't want any spoilers.
I was like, hey, do you want this gameplay mechanic thing that you might need? No, I'll be fine. I was like, are you sure? Yeah, I'll be fine. Don't you wish that I had warned you?
Even then,
I was like, he's pursuing you. He's pursuing you. He's pursuing you. He's like,
I'm in a safe room.
And I was like, bitch, no, you're not.
But it's a safe room.
No. Boom.
Dead. But like the Aaron Hansen Sonic and the Dark Knight style meltdown during the unavoidable chin move. That was the kind of rage I had when I got killed in the safe room.
You told me not to warn you. I tried.
Because when you said mechanics, I thought it meant like, they had changed something that was going to be story important.
No.
Because with Resident Evil, a lot of their mechanics are very story driven. Mm-hmm. So you can understand why I was like, no, I need to figure this out for myself. It doesn't change the fact that the poor refrigerator did not deserve that, first of all. I actually apologized to it because I felt so bad. Like, I know it's an inanimate object. I know it just cools our food. I felt so bad for punching it over and over again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so shortly after Resident Evil 3, the remake, happened, we actually got to go more into depth with Carlos as well.
That was fun. I actually enjoyed that.
I did too. Like, I didn't like him in the original 3.
No.
I fucking hated him, because he seemed like he was one of those stereotypical dude bros.
He felt like a fuckboy.
Yeah, no. He was a fuckboy. Or, as we called him in the 90s, a dude bro.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm showing my age here. And it wasn't as bad in the remake. He still had very much had that, oh, I'm here to save the damsel. Bitch, what damsel?
I feel like Jill made that comment at one point, like something along the lines, and I was just like, yes, my queen.
Yeah, it was very much along similar lines. But
that was, you kind of can't not have that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's part of Carlos's character.
It really is.
But they made him less of a douchebag, and more of the, I'm actually going to help. And I'm going to do the things.
Yep.
Instead, which was very helpful.
And then, surprise, surprise, Jill has to save his ass.
Yeah, but that's normal.
That made me a little too happy, though, because I was just like, take that, Carlos, you little shit.
I do like Carlos more in the remake.
They gave him an actual personality in the remake.
They did. Like, they made him this snarky little shit, and I say little shit with love.
I don't. And then, I don't remember their captain's name, but he was a pretty cool guy. Until Nikolai was like, nah, you're in my way. Bang, bang.
I know, that pissed me off.
I may have punched the couch a couple of times. 3 induced almost as much rage in me as 5 did. And that's saying a lot, because you weren't there when I beat 5 the first time, when it first came out. I was so angry, because this was when it came out on the PS3. I actually got so angry that I squeezed the controller hard enough to crack the plastic. And the PS3 controllers were made sturdy. But yeah, so all that shit goes down.
Yeah.
Everything goes sideways.
Going back to talking about 7, 8.
I was actually just about to get back to that.
Yep.
Resident Evil 8 isn't actually called 8.
Well, it's called Resident Evil 8 Village.
Well, no, it's technically they're saying it's just Resident Evil The Village.
They have the 8 in the, like they did with 7.
But the point I'm trying to make is they're just calling it The Village. They're not referring it to as 8, and apparently there's werewolves now.
My guess, this is again my theory, is that they got a form of the virus. Because
form of the virus or not, I feel like Capcom is going way off the reservation with this one.
I'm still gonna play it.
I'll play it because I have been loyal to the series since the first one came out. But the problem is, with 7/1, whatever the fuck you want to call it, it feels like they basically threw out almost 20 years of storytelling.
They did. That's exactly how it feels. And my problem with that is, surprise, surprise, I actually did a little research on 8. You're going to be playing as Ethan again.
Who, by the way, has literally no relevance.
The only reason he's quote-unquote relevant is because Chris basically says he is. And I'm like...
Well, not only that, but it was his wife that he was trying to save. But honestly, you could have just had Chris save him. He could have gone back to his family or whatever. Mm-hmm. Gone to therapy for the rest of his life. And we could have moved on with an actual story.
Yeah, I just...
But, like, from what I understand with 8, the village, whatever you want to call it, there's going to be werewolves, there might be ghosts. I swear to God, if they throw vampires in, I'm quitting the series.
Same.
I will not play any of the new ones. I'll play the remakes, but I will not play the new ones. But the upside with 8, going back to the data miner for a second.
Yeah.
Going back, about 45 minutes ago. For those who are just tuning in, during Umbrella Chronicles, there's a data mined line that somebody sent to DC Douglas after they went through all the old footage that wasn't put in the game but was still on the disc.
Still in the game, technically.
Umbrella Chronicles happened after 5. There is a line that DC Douglas recorded that is Albert Wesker. Rumors of my demise have been greatly over-exaggerated. Wesker, a.k.a. DC Douglas, because he's one and the same right now.
Yeah, especially
he's losing his mind.
Especially with the quarantine.
But he actually starts freaking out, going, "Oh my god, it's canon, it's canon, it's canon!"
It's adorable, actually.
Capcom, bring me back! And now
I'm pretty much convinced DC will work for this for free at this point.
Well, yeah, Wesker's his boy. But, like, at this point, it almost feels like they can't carry on without Wesker. Especially now that the data miners have put that information out there to the rest of the internet. Like, once it's on the internet, you're not getting rid of it.
You can try.
But you will not succeed.
But
I don't know, it's just...
I have a lot of theories. And hopes.
I have many hopes.
I have so many hopes for 8. And I will come out and say I dislike 7 as a Resident Evil game. I will not say that I dislike 7 as a game itself. No, it's far from the truth. As, like, gameplay-wise, it's solid. It is a solid game. Like, a horror survival game. But as I mentioned before, it does not feel like Resident Evil and the Resident Evil I know and love. I actually had to keep reminding myself, like, physically remind myself that I was playing a Resident Evil game. I should not have to do that.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm afraid that's supposed to be like with 7, or with 8, I mean. With The Village, like, even the teaser trailer they released, it looks like the teaser trailer they used for Outlast 2.
It does. But going on that, my hope is that, and I'm pretty sure that it's my suspicion is correct, because I believe they came out and said it, it's going to be connected to the village in 4.
That's what I'm hoping. But at the same time, that doesn't explain,
why is Chris Redfield there?
Why is there werewolf zombies now? Like, are we gonna have fucking sparkling zombies next?
Whatever the fuck it is, I hope it's explained.
And Wesker shows up to fix things, because, let's face it, they have gone so far off the rails. And, like, honestly, the previews kind of remind me of... God, which one was it? I want to say Silent Hill Shattered Memories?
I think it was Shattered Memories.
Like, the preview makes me think a lot more of that.
Mm-hmm.
Than it does Resident Evil.
And don't get me wrong, I will play the game, and I will probably, again, still have to remind myself that this is a Resident Evil game and not something else. But I fully admit, Capcom has been disappointing me.
Capcom has been kind of letting the ball drop lately.
They have. The remakes are fantastic.
But as far as new content goes...
As far as new content goes, they're not really bringing it into the glory of Resident Evil.
Yeah, no, Resident Evil has gained a cult following over the years because of everything they've done.
From the story to the mechanics to everything.
Yeah, like, Resident Evil redefined the horror genre for video games. Which, I actually want to bring in a quick tie-in. It also redefined the video game movie. Because originally we had, as much as we hate to admit it, the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Mm.
We had the Mortal Kombat movie, which was not terrible.
It
was bad, but it wasn't terrible. We had the Street Fighter movie. I still refuse to admit that exists. The only reason I watched it was for Raul Julia as Bison. But that's because I love him as an actor, and his role as Gomez from the Addams Family movies made me fall madly in love with him.
Yeah, same.
And I was just like, okay, let's see what he does for Street Fighter, because that was one of my favorite arcade games. But we had all these. And then, we had the Punisher movie, which was not technically or no, it wasn't Punisher. It was Judge Dredd. It was technically a comic book movie, but they did have an arcade game that it was more based off than the comics.
Yeah.
So with Resident Evil, when the first couple of games came out, because the first movie came out in, I want to say 2002, it kind of did what Capcom is doing with 7 and 8 now. It followed the basis of the storyline. But it's hard to explain. It brought in a couple of characters that originally had nothing to do with the franchise. They didn't exist until the movies existed. One of which was a direct call out to a reference made in a file that you had to find if you, did the Macarena while going down the hallway while avoiding the zombie, while also pushing this button without letting go while moving down the hall.
Again.
To a old file that was so hidden, so off the beaten path, nobody found it unless they were trying to platinum it before platinuming was a thing.
Hi, I am one of those people.
Called Project Alice. And they introduced Mila Jovovich, I don't know how you pronounce her last name. The chick from Fifth Element, which, yes, Project Alice was actually in the Fifth Element, as Project Alice. Originally, it's set up that she's guarding the entrance to the Umbrella Corps labs and is actually leaking information because she wants to bring down Umbrella Corps, blah, blah, blah.
Normal stuff.
Typical corporate espionage. Just everyday things. But the first movie, even though fans were upset that it didn't follow the storyline of the game completely, and we didn't have stars, we had a different team completely that Wesker was not in charge of, which a lot of fans were very disappointed about and very vocal about. They didn't actually bring Wesker in until the third live-action movie. And even then, it was a hologram for 2 seconds. So, with Resident Evil, the movies...
I'm not as familiar with the movies myself.
You've only seen 3 of them? And it's out of order, too, because they didn't have them on Hulu. Jerks. Anyway, so the big deal with this was, wait a second, this is a movie based off these video games, but where's all these characters? The only main characters they introduced, they didn't actually introduce any of the main characters in the first game, or in the first movie. We didn't have Chris, we didn't have Jill or anything, we didn't even meet Jill Valentine until the second movie. And even then, it was a case of she was in a mini skirt, a blue tube top, and 5-inch heeled combat boots.
Call back to the original 3 right there.
Yeah, that was Jill's original outfit in 3. But it was so impractical.
They fixed it in the remake. I'm so glad.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of people were wondering if the remakes and the new ones, 7, 8, were going to go off the movies. Problem is that there's no element to the live actions in any of the new games. And, hell, we didn't even meet Chris Redfield until, I want to say No, not Extinction.
Afterlife.
It was Afterlife, because it was when she went to Los Angeles. And don't be wrong, the live-action movies are entertaining, but if you're looking...
That's also when you met Claire.
Yeah, well, no, you actually meet Claire...
That one's in Extinction.
It was either in... No, it was in 2. I believe. No, it was Carlos you met in 2. Who was played by Oded Fair, who, oh my god, that man is so cute.
I'm pretty sure they modeled the remake
a little bit after him. But to be fair, I loved him in The Mummy because he was actually the, I cannot remember his name, but the Egyptian guy who goes around with Brendan Fraser.
Mm-hmm.
That's him.
I know.
I put that out to you the first time you had a freaking conniption fit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the live-action movies, as much as they don't follow the storyline, they're entertaining if you look at them as an alternate universe kind of deal.
Yeah. We have not seen the animated ones, quote
I
unquote.
want to see the CGI movies.
I do too, because I heard that they go with the story really well.
From what I understand, they fill in the plot holes that the games forgot to fill.
Yeah.
But the problem is that...
Especially Vendetta.
the problem is that we don't have money to buy the movies right now, and if you guys want to become a Patreon, the link is in our Discord. I'll be posting the link later, too.
Please, give us this so we can do more research.
Yeah, anyway, but the live-action movies did tie in enough for those who weren't gamers to get an idea of what Resident Evil was about. The one thing I will give them props for, well, no, the three things I will give them props for. A, the way they cast Wesker. I don't remember the actor's name, but he looked like he did in 3. He looked like he did in the game.
Ted, you showed him to me and I almost had a fucking stroke.
Yeah, you started crying.
Because I actually had no interest in watching the movies. Because my thing is, I, surprisingly, have very, very bad anxiety. And I cannot do horror movies.
But you can do horror games.
I can do horror games, but it's because of a lack of control.
Yeah, like, the part that gets me about the movies is, as somebody who grew up with the games, I have a hard time because it's like, no, that's not how this happened. This wasn't a thing. And who the fuck is this asshole over here? He didn't exist at all. And then they showed Odette Fair as Carlos, and I was just like, I can't even be mad. How you doing?
Yeah,
I pulled a Joey Tribbiani. How you doing? But the best way I can explain the movies is, if you're not a gamer, then feel free to watch the movies. If that's how you want to see the canon universe, more power to you. Because there are plenty of non-gamers who say that the movies are the coolest thing they've ever seen, and that is perfectly fine. I look at them as a standalone alternate universe kind of deal.
Same. As someone who's familiar with the games.
But then, like, it's hard to explain. But going back to the games here for a minute. The antagonists. Because Wesker wasn't the only villain. Excella wasn't the only villain.
No.
Briefly, Alex Wesker was an issue.
Very briefly.
Until she injected herself with the virus to help herself, and she actually turned herself into a giant green mutant gross bogey bullshit. Which is a shame, because Alex was a super awesome character. Like,
she's extremely intelligent.
She's an extremely intelligent character. She was really cool. Like, she was really well written. Albert just happened to have the stronger genetics. And then there's, Dr. Birkin. Who, without Dr. Birkin, we technically actually wouldn't have the series. Because, yes, Wesker helped perfect the virus. But Birkin is the one who originally stole it from Dr. Ashford.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, that was a whole... That was a whole freaking nightmare, to be honest. Like, because if I remember right, Dr. Ashford was the one who was like, let's use this to help people who have incurable diseases. And Birkin and Oswald were just like, hey, so about that cure you were going to make for everybody, what if we told you that we turned it into this really dangerous thing that we're going to call, what are we going to call it? BOWs. That's exactly what we're going to call it. We're going to call it bows. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit... I find some of their acronyms to be fucking ridiculous, okay?
Same.
But the BOWs, the progenitor virus, the T virus, the 50 billion different strands of the T virus, the G virus, the C virus, Ouroboros, all of these would not have happened if Birkin hadn't stabbed Ashford in the back, both figuratively and literally. And honestly, Ashford originally, developed the progenitor virus to help his daughter who had a very debilitating muscle disorder. It was a whole big bag of, we want power, I want to help people. We want power, I want to help people. There's more of us than you. Fuck. That's the only way to describe how that shit went down. And then Wesker decided to perfect it. And to become the god of his new world. Because let's face it, as much as I love him as a villain and as a character in general, that man has got a god complex.
Mm-hmm.
But all in all, I would say Resident Evil is still one of the coolest series that me and my wife have both played.
Yeah.
Even though we were disappointed with 7.
Very much so.
And kind of disappointed with 2 and 3 remake. Only because we didn't get to see Wesker in new HD. They missed out on the perfect opportunity to show off his what's the word I'm looking for? Assets. His very intricately detailed, leather-clad assets.
They missed out.
They missed out on a prime opportunity there. And honestly, as much as the ending of 5 royally pissed off the fandom, Resident Evil itself still holds the test of time. For some people, Resident Evil 7/1 was their first game. And if that's the case, that's awesome. It's awesome to see new fans getting into it. Just because we don't agree with some of the shit they did doesn't mean that we don't appreciate people getting into the fandom.
No, it's actually the opposite.
If anything, we encourage them. Even if they don't want to play the originals like we did, then we encourage them to try one of the newer ones. Whether it's them starting with 4, or 7, or 5, or 1, or whatever. The Resident Evil fandom is for everybody, as long as you're 17 years of age or older.
Yeah.
Because you cannot purchase it on your own in the state of New Mexico unless you're 17 years of age or older. But, honestly, like, for the longest time, we were all worried the Resident Evil fandom was going to die.
Because they weren't putting out any new content, and 7 crashed hard with the fandom.
It did. Like, with the new fans, with the ones coming in at 7, they thought it was the coolest game ever. Mm-hmm. With the fans who've been there from the beginning, like us, we were so disappointed that with the already pre-built fan base, it just crashed and burned.
We were afraid that they weren't going to put anything out.
Yeah, we honestly, my wife and I both assumed, like, we were going to take bets. How long before Capcom shuts down Resident Evil? Mm-hmm. Like they did Silent Hill PT. But
we didn't want another Konami situation.
We did not want a Konami situation or anything like that.
But we also weren't holding our breath.
Like, it was one of those cases of, if it happens, we had a good run. If not, sweet, we can keep going.
Yeah. And I'm glad we're going to be able to keep going.
I'm both glad and still a little upset about it. But that's mostly because, again, as a fan who's been there since the beginning, I feel like they're going off the res, but that's just my opinion.
I really hope that the remakes of the new games, of the old ones, are setting up for the mechanics of the new one.
Not only that, but if I don't get to hear rumors of my demise were greatly exaggerated, being growled by DC Douglas as he walks into frame of the new game, like, I am going to fly to Japan, kick in their door, drag DC Douglas with me, throw him at them, and go, use your greatest asset!
And then close the door.
And then close the door and leave them to his personal tools or whatever. Like, leave it up to his discretion on what to do from there at that point.
Yep.
Because DC Douglas, honestly, as much as I love the original voice actors for Wesker, the last 3 that there have been, DC Douglas, to me, is the most memorable Wesker.
He is.
And part of that is because of his iconic, the way he screams Chris. That he gets that special, deep, primal, guttural growl that you can only hit if you truly hate someone. And considering Chris Redfield kind of destroyed Wesker's career, or rather, should I say, DC's career as Wesker, he has a right to be pissed. Like, he has a right to be angry at Chris Redfield.
Yep.
DC Douglas, we love you. Please, for the love of God, revive Wesker. Beg them if you have to. We'll sign a petition.
I'll start that petition.
But, all in all, Resident Evil still stands the test of time. And I hate to say it, but it's actually more relevant now than it ever has been in our lifetime.
It really is.
Because
the remake of 3 could not have come out at a better time.
Unfortunately, I beat it in 2 days.
You beat it in a day and a half.
I count 2 days because I slept.
Yeah, you're right.
But that's also because at the time, I couldn't go back to work. I had nothing to do, so I was like, screw it, I'm going to play Resident Evil. And
because I got it for you. Technically, I got it for us.
But because you were just like, no, I want to see you play it first. Because apparently my reactions are hilarious.
They really are. We should do a live stream at some point on one of our channels.
Well, I mean, we can always have a streaming day for gaming on here, too.
Yeah. Well, we're still figuring that out.
Yeah, we're still figuring out scheduling and such. But regardless, all in all, Resident Evil, it defined a generation. It opened the doors for so many as far as horror genre and everything else goes.
It defined the genre itself.
Honestly, it redefined it. Because we had Duke Nukem, we had Doom and all this. But Resident Evil, it opened doors we didn't know
needed to be opened.
Yeah. I couldn't think of the word for a second. My mind went blank. And all in all, actually, come to think of it, like, if it wasn't for Resident Evil, I actually wouldn't have met my now wife. Like, we wouldn't have actually become friends. We probably would have met in passing, and that would have been it. Mm-hmm. And thanks to Resident Evil...
Yeah, you made a Resident Evil, like, joke reference, and I got it.
Yeah, no, that's what it was. We were getting ready for the cosplay cafe, because we had met before, but that's a story for another day.
That's for, like, an actual story day.
Yeah, we'll have like a personal Q&A kind of story day one of these days, but that's further down the road. But we were getting ready for a local cosplay cafe we used to help with, and as a joke, one of my friends handed me a carton of eggs, and in my best attempt at a Wesker voice, I was like, I require an egg. And all of a sudden I hear, motherfucker!
No, you heard crass.
Oh yeah, no, that's right. My at the time, acquaintance, now wife, was backstage getting ready because I was the cook, so I was in the kitchen the entire time, and all I heard was somebody screaming, crass! And I put the eggs down, ran to the back, and went, whomst the fuck?
And I was just dying laughing.
And this one was on the floor. There was tears. I'm pretty sure you fucked up your eyeliner.
I did. It was
You had like a streak running across the middle of your nose from the inside corner of your eye.
Yeah.
It was great. And then we became good friends, started dating, and surprise, here we are. But without Resident Evil, we wouldn't have had that common ground to really bond over.
Mm-mm. And now we have matching umbrella tattoos.
That we still need to get colored.
We need to get them colored so bad.
But since we have like half an hour left, we can go ahead and do a Q&A if you guys have any comments or questions or anything like that. Tony, I know you have a few things to say. You always have something to say. You're being oddly quiet.
If he's even still here.
Let
me check. I can check. Yeah, he's still here.
So yeah, if you guys have any comments, questions, anything like that,
feel free to ask us.
If we don't get a whole lot, we'll probably end up just cutting the stream a little bit short just because we don't want to take up empty airspace.
We don't, and we do have stuff that we need to get done today.
But, like, we forgot to go over the results of the polls.
We did!
I feel like I have failed. So let me pull up some results here. So, for the last week, we had a poll up. Well, 2, technically. Asking 2 different questions. The first was, who is your favorite Resident Evil protagonist? The options were Chris Redfield, Claire Redfield, Leon S. Kennedy, or Jill Valentine. And I wasn't expecting it to be this much of a landslide, but combining the results from both Twitter and Discord, can you, without looking at the number, can you guess who the number 1 vote was?
It's gotta be Leon.
Yeah, it's our fucking Labrador Retriever.
It's our puppy.
And then I looked at it, nobody, out of like the 30 people who voted, nobody voted for anybody else. All 30 people voted for Leon. Tells you how many people actually like Chris. Sucker. And then we also asked who everybody's favorite Resident Evil villain was.
It's Wesker. Nobody asks anything else.
Well, actually.
I didn't look at our Twitter.
No, I've been keeping track. I've been keeping the numbers. So the options were Albert Wesker, obviously, Nemesis, Dr. William Birkin, or Mr. X. Coming in at 3rd place was Birkin.
That's actually surprising to me.
I would have expected him to have either been non-existent or maybe 2nd, depending on who was voting. 2nd was actually Nemesis.
I believe it.
But part of that's because even though he was a quote-unquote mindless zombie, he was the most intelligent zombie there was, and he actually made a really good villain. Nobody voted for Mr. X, which I'm not surprised, because Mr. X is the reason we don't have Wesker, you fucking assholes.
There was a theory going around that was Wesker, but I was like, nah, there's no way.
Nah, if anything, it's a puppet by Wesker.
I am convinced that it's a puppet by Wesker.
With 30 votes, 5 of which went to William, 6 went to Nemesis. We had 19 votes for Albert Wesker as the number 1 villain. And I actually had one person who asked to remain anonymous message me personally and go, why would you even include Mr. X? There is no reason to include that waste of space. How dare he grace your Twitter feed?
Because he's fun to meme.
He makes a really bad, wonderful meme. But yeah, so...
God damn it, Tony.
Unfortunately, he's not wrong. So, real quick, something I wasn't going to touch on because it actually didn't cross my mind, but Tony brought up. I think it's Rule 23. If it exists, there's porn of it on the internet. And I have fallen down that rabbit hole just out of curiosity, like one of those morbid curiosity things. There's surprisingly a lot of Nemesis porn.
There's a lot
on Pornhub. There's a lot. I haven't even checked the other websites. Like, I'm afraid to go to those other ones because God knows what viruses they have. But no,
literally and figuratively.
Yeah. I see what you did there. I see what you did there. But no,
I saw my chance and I took it.
Are you gonna throw away your shot?
Fuck off.
DuckTales is an episode for another day.
Yeah.
But no, with Nemesis, he's very fun. He's a very, very popular one amongst the fanfic writers and the animators. Which surprisingly, there's not a lot for Wesker. As much as he's a fan favorite, nobody's animated him.
I just realized something we didn't go over. Tyrant.
We touched base on it, but we didn't go into detail.
We didn't.
We have like 20 minutes. Do you want to go into detail on that real quick?
Not really.
Okay, we'll do
Tyrant and Nemesis kind of go hand in hand.
They really do. And we'll probably end up doing a Resident Evil episode 2. Because with more Resident Evil stuff coming out.
Probably for our patrons.
Yeah, we'll be doing a second episode on certain things like Resident Evil for our patrons that will eventually be available to our non-paid viewers. But because we do want patrons and we want you guys to support us so that we can give you these fun... Let's be honest, these are crack-fueled podcasts.
They are.
This is crack.
I'm having fun at least.
Oh yeah, no, and I'm glad you guys are enjoying watching us being dorks. Well, listening to us being dorks. But we'll be doing a much more in-depth episode 2 for our patrons that will be available, I'd say, like, a few weeks after it airs for the patrons.
Mm-hmm.
That way, you guys can still get the awesome details we go over, but our patrons still get that exclusiveness for their contributions. That being said, I think that actually wraps up our episode for today, to be honest.
It really does. There's not much else that we have to go on.
At least not that we wouldn't have to do more research on to go into more detail on.
Yeah, we actually would have to do more research, more extensive than we've already done.
Because a lot of today was based off of what we know by memory, what we've seen in cutscenes on YouTube, and what we could find that wasn't explained in the games. But this was also done in between shifts at work too, because work has been
busy
insane.
this last week.
This last week has been a nightmare as far as hours go.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for tuning in. Next week's episode is actually going to be next Thursday. We are unable to do it Friday as we're going out of town for a couple of days. Next weekend is my birthday, and my in-laws want to take us to Colorado for a couple of days. So we'll be out of town Friday to Sunday. So we'll be doing our episode Thursday, just to be safe. It'll still be 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time.
Unless that changes.
And if that changes, you will all be updated as soon as humanly possible.
But next week's topic is going to be X-Men, specifically the animated series.
Did we decide X-Men or was it going to be DuckTales?
No, it was X-Men. We already put out a list.
Right. Hi, I've slept since then.
DuckTales was going to be in like 5 weeks.
Right, DuckTales is towards the end of the first section we have mapped out.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so yeah, next week we are tackling a 90s staple, X-Men the Animated Series, which we have some fun stories about that we'll go into next week. We are super excited about this episode because X-Men is something that is very near and dear to both of us, as well as a huge part of the Marvel fandom.
Seems to be a theme in these episodes, is just ones that we are personally
Oh, yeah, like...
Just wait until we get to the Persona episode.
I'm going to be taking the back seat on that one. I can tell you that right now.
Like, you took the front seat for this one. I'll be taking the front seat for Persona.
To be fair, I played the older games. You played the ones from, like, 5 up.
I did.
So, like, between the two of us, we can cover most of it together. But this one, I unintentionally took the reins on.
No, you're fine.
But that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. All the links to our Patreon, our Discord, and everything will be up on our Twitter. That being said, thank you guys again for your continued support. Thank you for letting us do what we love.
It's because of you guys that we're continuing to be able to do this.
And to quote the greatest overlord in all of history, you have 7 minutes to hit that subscribe button. If you miss an episode, your inferior genetics will be the downfall of your race. You knew that was coming.
I did.
You knew.
Do not point that finger at me. I will bite you.
Promises. Alright, guys. We'll see you guys next week, next Thursday, 10:30 Mountain Standard Time.
Or 10. Not 10:30.
10 Mountain Standard Time. I'm tired. Thank you guys again. We'll see you next week. And as usual, stay awesome, dudes. Bye.
Love you guys.